Are you sure about this? If you really want to learn Spanish grammar, that's your own funeral, man, and I won't stop you. I don't recommend it though because it's a nightmare, a horrible idea, and it might just discourage you from learning. But if you're gonna still go ahead with it, there's one thing you should have mastered before you start learning Spanish grammar, and there's 3 things we can do to simplify the whole horrific nightmare process a little bit more. Let's see what those are. Capítulo 1. Parts of speech, or POS, which I might or might not call them going forward. We learned about it in school. It's a pretty basic part of grammar, but most of us have forgotten about it. However, when you're trying to learn a language, it's a pretty crucial thing that you should have mastered when you're going to learn grammar in a target language. And as you can see, in English and in Spanish, the parts of speech are relatively similar, especially when we're simplifying them like this here. We have nouns, pronouns, verbs, conjunctions, prepositions, participles, etc. Same as in Spanish, very similar. However, when you go searching for like how big can parts of speech really get, and I went and I got a list, well, the list will grow quickly. I mean, there's so many different types of pronouns, reflexive, which is so common in Spanish, relative, there's auxiliary verbs, superlative adjectives, etc. So parts of speech can get quite complicated fast. However, moving on to capítulo number 2, as we start to break down the sentence structure, which helps us to comprehend Spanish grammar at a faster pace than just taking a book and stuff, it will be important for us to know, or at least try to know, what parts of speech do what and where they fall. So if you haven't mastered this in English yet, don't keep going with learning grammar. You'll hate it. Now, that being said, let's keep moving forward. It's your funeral. We're going ahead with capítulo 2, sentence structure. So to really get to master the grammar of a language quicker, not easier, because Spanish is hard, you want to break down the sentence structure and you want to compare the 2 languages. Here we have an example of English, a sentence built out, but notice where the differences come in when the Spanish shows up. El profesor enseña matemáticas y ciencias. One of the main differences here in this first sentence is we have feminine and masculine. So there's something that we learn right off the bat by just studying that. Let's go on to the next sentence. Ayer comimos pizza en un restaurante nuevo. Studying this sentence, what do you see? What's different here? Again, we have feminine and masculine. However, where does the adjective fall in the formula? Exactly, at the end, after the noun, not before it like it does in English. Let's keep analyzing. Sometimes, a veces, las personas compran frutas frescas en el mercado. What do you see here? What are the main differences? Yeah, in English, where the noun there is plural once, although it's plural I guess by default, but plural fruits, it's in there just once, one plural. In Spanish, no way, man. We have to make the definite article plural. We have to make the feminine noun plural, the other feminine noun plural, and the adjective has to also match that plural. So a lot of differences already. But by studying sentences, we can really speed up the process. However, as we see with this new and last sentence, if we continue to do this, it can get overwhelming fast. So do it perhaps at the beginning of your studies of grammar, and then move on to capítulo 3. Thinking in Spanish. So how do we think in Spanish? Whenever you see a Spanish sentence, instead of translating it back to understandable English, which is fine, leave the sentence structure the same as in Spanish, like in here. El gato negro duerme en la cama cada noche would be in literal English, the cat black sleeps on the bed each night. Let's see yet another example. That's wrong English, by the way. Me gusta mucho la comida italiana, especialmente la pizza. This would sound like, to me pleases much the food Italian, especially the pizza. Sounds weird in English, but if you do it enough times, you'll get to realize how and what sort of thoughts go into creating a sentence in Spanish. It will simplify things far more than just studying the rules and the grammar, which, by the way, rules are broken in Spanish all the time, so don't stick to the rules. One more sentence. My friends and I go to the beach all the ends of the week is what it would sound like if we said it in Spanish. Mis amigos y yo vamos a la playa todos los fines de semana. It could be every, but we have another word in Spanish for that, cada. So that's why leaving it as all is a smart idea. Helps us get used to how we build sentences in Spanish. Try doing it as soon as you can in your grammar studies so you can start to really think in Spanish when building sentences. And the last or semi-last level of this exercise would be to start doing it with normal English sentences like this one. This is accurately translated and it would sound like ayer fuimos al parque y jugamos con la pelota roja. Now that you've learned how things are constructed, you should be able to tell that red ball and ball red have been changed. Pelota roja. I'll give you one last one and let's see if you can decipher this one on your own. ¿Dónde está el restaurante mexicano que visitamos ayer? If you said ¿Dónde está mexicano restaurante que visitamos ayer? That's how we say it in English, but not in Español. So doing this as quickly as you can in your studies will help you to think in Spanish. But you can't really master all that we have spoken about tonight, or today, I don't know when you're watching this, unless we get to capítulo 4, practicing. So in the next few minutes, I'm just going to lay out a few sentences here for you in Spanish, and then just bring them to literal English. The first one. El profesor de matemáticas siempre llega temprano a la clase. Cada mañana me levanto temprano y hago ejercicio. Los estudiantes están trabajando en sus proyectos para la clase. El doctor me dijo que debo comer más verduras y menos carne. No puedo encontrar las llaves del coche. ¿Me ayudas a buscarlas? La película que vimos anoche fue muy interesante y emocionante. Siempre estudio español por la noche, después del trabajo. Este fin de semana quiero visitar el Museo de Arte en la ciudad. Nos encanta pasear por el parque los domingos por la tarde. Ella está esperando una carta importante de su familia en México. Okay, let's bring up the difficulty a little bit by translating from literal English to español. So how would you say this in español? ¿Cómo puedo llegar a la estación de tren desde aquí? A Juan le gusta escuchar música clásica mientras trabaja. ¿Puedes decirme qué hora es y cuándo sale el próximo autobús? Mis padres viven en una casa pequeña cerca de la montaña. Los estudiantes tienen que entregar sus trabajos antes del viernes. María cocina muy bien, especialmente cuando prepara comida italiana. Last one. Mañana tengo que levantarme temprano para ir al aeropuerto. If you're an expert and if you think you're doing good with your Spanish learning process, let's see how you do bringing it from full English to full español. ¿Cuántos libros tienes que leer para la clase de literatura? Me gusta mucho el verano porque puedo nadar en la piscina. No entiendo por qué ella siempre llega tarde a las reuniones. El viaje a la playa fue muy divertido, pero también agotador. And the last one, mi jefe me pidió que preparara una presentación para la reunión. So if you want to continue with this nightmare of learning Spanish grammar, just make sure of this one thing, that you know English grammar pretty well. Otherwise, none of this is going to make sense. And if you want to simplify learning Spanish grammar, just study the sentence structure of simple sentences, say it in literal English. You can use AI to help you translate it into literal English, and then see where the parts of speech change. This will help you to get used to thinking Spanish quicker and speak faster. But remember, Spanish is hard.